Welcome to a special edition from Full Circle Ancestry, talking about Kansas City 2025, Skyline sites and genealogy resources. Recently I took a trip to the KC area for a genealogy conference that I'll mention in a moment, but to start with, I made a few stops in the area. Let's start at Caw Point. This plaque explains that near this site, the Lewis and Clark expedition stopped on June 27, 1804, remained camped for a rest period of a few days. Sweeping up, we see a view of the Kansas River as it flows toward what today is the Kansas City skyline, with the Missouri River crossing in front of it. Down the path a little bit reveals another plaque with a similar description alongside this dedication to the area's Native American Indian tribes, this station for the Cherokee as an example. Walking closer to the very point of the river confluence is a silhouette of Lewis and Clark pointing the way west as they would go from here. I was able to walk right up to the point where the Kansas River on the right, also apparently known as the Caw River back in the day, starts to blend into the Missouri River as it flows toward the Mississippi. For an even closer skyline view, venturing out on a bridge with no sidewalks is required. But fortunately, it was a quiet morning on this road. I have to say, I don't think of Kansas City as having one of the great skylines of the USA, but this view is quite nice indeed. Driving into the heart of the city, I also passed a section of road with several interesting old-fashioned business signs, painted right on the sides of the buildings. Emerging from under this roadway and maneuvering around, we first pass a string of fireworks outlets. Pyro Joe's Fireworks is my personal favorite. Now let me read a couple of nearby historical markers as we drive along. At the confluence of the Missouri and Kansas Caw Rivers on the Great Bend of the Missouri, longest of the U.S. rivers, this famous city of the vast Missouri Valley was first incorporated, 1850, as the town of Kansas. The first white man known to have viewed this magnificent location was the French explorer de Bourgmont, 1714. Among trappers who later frequented the area was Daniel Morgan Boone, son of the pioneer. The Lewis and Clark expedition camped here 1804, and the first steamboat to pass 1819 was the Western Engineer. Kansas City is an outgrowth of Francois Choteau's fur trading post, first permanent settlement 1821, and the town of Westport, established by J.C. McCoy 1833. Since 1899, part of Kansas City, Westport, for 2 decades, was an outfitting center and, for a time, terminus of the Santa Fe Trail. The town of Kansas was first laid out 1838. As immigrants to what is now Kansas and traders outfitted here, the town grew. By 1857, it was the Santa Fe Trail terminus, and by 1860, the dominant river town and outfitter to Western trader and settler. Kansas City, Continental Railroad and Air Travel Center, famous livestock and grain market, huge industrial and food processing point, in 1860 had under 5,000 population. During the Civil War, the city languished under Union occupation in an area almost depopulated by military order and guerrilla warfare. The Battle of Westport, October 23, 1864, ended the Confederate cause in Missouri. In this Gettysburg of the West, 20,000 Federals commanded by Pleasanton and Curtis defeated 9,000 Confederates led by Price, Shelby, and Marmaduke in bitter conflict. The site is marked in Luce Park. In 1865, the Missouri Pacific Railroad reached this point, and here the Missouri River was bridged for the first time in 1869. Now 6 bridges cross the river here. Among point of interest are the Nelson Gallery of Art, Liberty Memorial, Proctor's Pioneer Mother Group, and Dahlin's Scout in Penn Valley Park, City Hall Observation Roof, Kansas City Museum, Swope Park Zoo, University of Kansas City, Rockhurst College, Art Institute, Lookout Point, and Cliff Drive. Continuing up the road, we pass the Columbia Burlap Bag Company sign on the left. To the right, the sign for the Stowe Hardware Supply Company. Again on the left, the Advance Rumley Thresher Company sign. Finally in the distance, not a sign per se, but the giant Hereford bull harkens back to the days of the Kansas City stockyards. The next stop also features a skyline view, but the main view here is of the National World War I Museum and Memorial. Let's swoop in from high above and come down for a closer look. The museum's tower is 217 feet tall. A reflecting pool sits in front of the main entrance. The imposing structure had fallen into disrepair, but was revitalized with a combination of local and federal funding. It also includes a research center which can help with your genealogical investigations of ancestor veterans of the Great War. In honor of those who served in the World War in defense of liberty and our country. Dedicated November 1st, 1921. This is a great museum to visit. Check it out at this website. Now on to the Scout Monument. It sits on a bluff offering a view of downtown Kansas City in the distance, the skyline, the Ferris wheel, and Interstate 35, which was built long after the statue's installation in 1922. One final stop of historical site around Kansas City, Rosedale Memorial Arch. erected by the people of Rosedale in honor of its citizens who answered their country's call and served under arms for the triumph of right over might in the World War. It was initiated by the people of Rosedale just before the community was annexed by Kansas City, but it was completed as a memorial to those who served in World War I from Rosedale. That skyline sure looks nice in the distance as the American flag flutters in a high wind. The arch is off the beaten path, and it was good to spend some time here alone before joining the main motivation for coming to this area. I attended the Czechoslovak Genealogy Society International's 20th conference, where I met a lot of great people and listened to some fascinating educational presentations. The crew of attendees and organizers share a heritage of ancestry from modern-day Czechia and Slovakia. Check out the website. There were also sale and donation tables, traditional dances and music, and the parade of kroj, or traditional clothing. If you're watching this channel because you're interested in Slovak genealogy, consider joining CGSI and consider coming to one of the biannual conferences. It will be held in a different city each time, so don't expect to be in KC for this event in 2027. While at the CGSI conference, I was also tuned in to the Midwest Genealogical Center in Independence, Missouri. Here's a quick view of the front of the building, which is loaded with historical documents and maps to support genealogical research covering the whole nation. The name is misleading as they do not just support research related to the Midwest. To test that theory out, after getting an orientation of the facility, which I plan on coming back to, I found a book containing marriage indexes from the church in New Hampshire where I was married more than 30 years ago, and in it was the listing of my own marriage. Find your way to Kansas City, enjoy the sights, and as Lewis and Clark always say, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to Full Circle Ancestry. See you next time.